candy floss machine, and the kids have been lapping it up, and even some of the adults, believe it or not. And so we've churned out tons of candy floss, tons of cake, tons of tea, and everyone's had a fantastic time. I mean, I think it was certainly fueled the tug of war, and I'll big up the Crabtree side.
It has been amazing, Camilla. Well,
I can't believe, Charlotte, you've forgotten the bingo. I was calling the bingo, I'm quite hurt. I mean, that was probably the highlight of the day. We've got a band, they're just warming up in the background. What is really beautiful about this street party is how multicultural it is. This is real London, everybody listening. This is a London that we all know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many different people here, actually, Camilla, young and old and from all backgrounds as well.
Sounds great, Charlotte.
All live in a house. There's, you know, the posh houses.
Across the road, the posh houses, the social housing. We've got everybody here from every imaginable socio-economic group.
Well, I'll let you two go because the food is just being served now. Of course, we've got things like coronation chicken, those classic dishes coming out, and I know these two are very, very eager to get their hands on it, so I'll let you go. But Camilla, this is a proper British street.
Charlotte, it's a right royal knees up there. The only thing that worries me is it's getting quite late on Sunday and the bank holiday is over.
In a quarter of a mile of Wagoners Roundabout, take the second exit onto the Parkway A312.
It's a big concern, and a lot of these people I've been speaking to are getting a little bit squiffy, haven't they? But it's been a fantastic 4 days of celebrations, and people are really lapping it up the final day of the Queen's Jubilee celebration.
Great stuff, Charlotte. You enjoy it yourself. Have some coronation chicken on me. Thank you very much. Sounds like fun, doesn't it? Might get down there after this. We're speaking about childcare, the cost of childcare. I love this message. Why don't you just change the name of LBC to 24-hour Women's Talk? Constant discussion on how females suffer and men have it better. I'm fatigued. Childcare costs are just as hard on men, for your information. Yes, I know that. Yeah, I know. I mean, men are more than welcome.
Exit the roundabout onto the Parkway.
And you struggle to pay the cost.
Continue on the Parkway for 1 mile.
Stacks up financially for you. We're not being sort of sexist here. Any parent or non-parent, frankly, is willing to, is more than welcome to bring in. We heard from Holly earlier, who was a childcare provider, saying actually she's sick of parents moaning about the cost, because actually, newsflash, looking after kids is hard and requires quite a lot of investment. Let's speak to Jane now in Richmond. Jane, what's your experience of this?
Hi, Camilla. Yes, thanks for having me on. First time person, I'm a bit nervous.
Oh, welcome, Jane. Don't be nervous. We've just had people on who are a little bit squiffy, so you're going to be perfectly fine.
Oh, I've had a totally teetotal weekend.
Oh, good girl.
Don't need to worry about that for me.
Tell me about childcare then, Jane.
So the reason that I was employed to text and one of your producers got back to me is because I've got a friend who very recently, she's just sort of coming out having 3 children, and she was quite young, so she's a young mum, didn't really have an established career before she became a parent, kind of did some bar work, some waitressing work, and I live in a very rural community as well.
Yes.
So as far as career opportunities go, without having a long commute, which obviously when you've got young children is really difficult anyway, a fantastic opportunity came up to become a trainee dental nurse.
Wow.
And it was fully paid apprenticeship, no training, no experience required, and she applied for it, she got it, and was absolutely over the moon. Knew it was going to be difficult. She does have a husband doing it full time, but now that she's actually in the job, she's loving it. Both professionally and personally, you can just see how much it's helped her as a person.
In a quarter of a mile, at Cranford Parkway interchange, take the second exit onto the M4 slip road to Heathrow Airport M25.
You can see how much it really has helped her. But the childcare costs, and they do get some help, the child vouchers and that, but her wages basically wiped out with childcare.
So she's not actually making any money.
Nothing, literally absolutely nothing.
But you're pointing out, Jane, that she is benefiting professionally and personally by being given this new lease of life, and she's now in a profession and she's grown. She's going to hopefully, take on more training and grow in that. But it's pretty soul destroying to see your paycheck wiped out every month, isn't it?
Exactly, and I think that's the thing, she's sticking with it because she's fortunate enough that she does have a partner who doesn't earn, they're not they're not well off by any stretch. But then going back to that previous text that you just read, I can see in that person and a husband that he's under immense pressure, because what happens if he falls sick or something happens, and then he can't pay the bills, and what happens to everyone, because he obviously feels like he's the provider.
Yes.
So I can see the effect that has on the whole family. And I just worry that if she decides the pressure's too much...
Exit the roundabout onto the slip road.
See that, okay, this is really...
In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4.
This is going to be me in 5-10 years' time. I'm going to be professional. I'm going to have a career. I'm going to make my kids proud of me. Not that they wouldn't be already if you wasn't, but...
Yeah, no, I completely get it. I get the mentality. And thank you very much for that. Great first call, Jane. Please phone me again. Also, Niall has said here on text 8450, if you want to do the same, why have a child if you want to farm them out ASAP? Not a dig at all, just an honest question. Well, it's a lead in that question, isn't it? Because don't you necessarily ask that of a bloke? I used to get on royal tours and people would go, who's looking after the children? I'd go, their father? Oh yes, he exists. He can do some of the childcare, or, oh, it must be very difficult for the children with you working. I don't think it's something they ever say to blokes. I don't quite get this. You could say, well, why have an education? Why have an education? Why be trained in anything if as soon as you have children you then give it all up? What's happening here? We're also living in a society where it's really expensive. We know this because a cost of living crisis is coming hurtling towards us all. Our energy bills have doubled overnight, seemingly. So most households these days require a dual income. That's just the way of the world. Let's not penalise parents for having jobs. Let's make it as easy as possible for them, I would argue. Carl's in Leicester. Carl, what do you think?
Hello.
Oh, Carl. So talk about suspenseful. Honestly, what are you going to say?
Well, I've been trying to listen to you today, and I've been doing a bit of DIY, which is great. Just going back to the point on the nursery, I've got 2 children.
Yes.
One is 2.5 and he's in full-time nursery, and my other child, she's 7.5, so she's in full-time education. Where we are with the nursery, we have a great nursery, very, very local, which is fantastic. I think increasing the number of children per nursery now, so I think one of the previous callers highlighted, I think there'll be an interestful, it's a constant, being around children, looking after them, their well-being, etc.
Yes.
And I think the nursery nurse-to-child ratios are workable. I think when you go beyond that, I think stress levels, there becomes a lot of impact on that.
Imagine looking after 7 children, or 5 to 7 children at once. I mean, I'd like to see the Prime Minister or Keir Starmer do that, to be fair.
Exactly, and I think it comes down to the policy of care with child as well. And, if it's sparingly sort of, if there are a lot of more children that you're looking after, it's a bit like, if you wanted to harp about sort of second bottom class, if you've got 30 odd children and one teacher, I mean, it fails in significance to thriving.
But Carl, have you been using childcare vouchers? I mean, do you have any are you using these government schemes?
Well, this is quite interesting. Me and my wife, Paulins, were collecting childcare vouchers. I was under a certain...
In a quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
£43 a month. My wife got less because she's a higher earner. So I think now, because I've moved jobs and I think under some of the regulations that are coming, if companies are not doing that or not allowing you to do the childcare thing,
keep right to stay on M4.
You can't reapply. If you've lost them, then you've lost them. And also, I think they've changed. It's no longer 243, because that's what I remember from when the children were really little. It's something like 150. I mean, the whole point is you're not taxed on that income, so it goes straight to childcare providers. But when you're talking about bills of 1,200 a month, it doesn't really touch the size, does it?
Well, no, it's really, I generally work in an office. It's kind of more of a male-dominated environment. I was just chatting about childcare, and I said, well, we pay, in the
friend for whom it is all of their salary. And therefore they think, well, why am I actually bothering? Yes, there's professional and personal development in having a career, but if at the end of the month I'm not getting any money out of not seeing my children, is there really any point? If you're in that category, give me a ring, 0345 6060 973. Going to take more of your calls next, but first, it's 6:30 and here's the news headlines with Tim Humphrey.
The Queen has made an appearance on the Buckingham Palace balcony at the end of the People's Pageant to mark her Platinum Jubilee. James Bond cars, Daleks and iconic figures from Her Majesty's reign process down the Mall and past the palace. A vehicle carrying Dames Prue Leith, Joan Collins and Arlene Phillips broke down at the pageant. Four men in fluorescent jackets had to push the vintage Jack down the road. Britain's Alfie Hewitt and Gordon Reid won a record 10th consecutive Grand Slam title after victory in the men's wheelchair doubles at the French Open tennis. They beat Gustavo Fernandez and Shingo Kunieda in straight sets in Paris. The weather cloudy with rain in central areas tonight, a few showers in the south, dry and clear in the north.
In a quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
Friends, Romans, tradespeople, actually just tradespeople. If your skills are fit for an emperor, then I, Caesar, implore you to join Checkatrade. Their checks mean that everyone knows you're the best, and they guarantee your work for a year. So apply today.
Keep right to stay on M4.
Please apply.
This is flute beatboxing. Amazing. You can do something just as amazing by giving blood. We need donors in London. It's quick and easy, and extra safety measures are in place. Join us at blood.co.uk to make an appointment at Westfield, Shepherd's Bush and Stratford, or the West End Donor Centre. Your donation could help save the lives of up to 3 people. This is amazing.
We all know it can be healthier and better for the planet to eat your veg. So we've made Tesco Meat and Veg Mince, packed with 30% veg. It's good for you and better for the planet, as it has a lower carbon footprint than our 100% beef mince. And now it's only £2 with your Tesco Club card or app. Tesco, every little helps. Selected larger stores. Tesco Meat and Vegetable Beef Mince is high in protein, which contributes to the maintenance of muscle mass as part of a very balanced diet and healthy lifestyle. Club card price £2, regular price £2.50. Club card or app required. Ends 14th of June. To verify, see tesco.com/better-baskets.
Where are you from? Join me, Lily Almond, on my new podcast, Where You From, where I speak to big names about the intent behind that question. Listen and subscribe on Global Player.
Right now at B&Q, get 25% off garden furniture and barbecues. That's 25% off, making the most of your bank holiday weekend. Shop in-store at DIY.com or on the B&Q app. Hurry, ends Monday. You can do it. Excludes products sold and shipped by verified sellers online, subject to availability, ends 6th of June.
This is LBC with Camilla Tominey. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
It's 6:35. You're listening to Camilla Tominey on LBC. Keep your calls coming in on childcare and the astronomical cost of it. A text here from a parent of twins. I have a professional job, earning a good salary. The cost of childcare almost broke our family. I was having to work from home and looking after 2 toddlers at the same time. My employer didn't know, and I had to maintain the illusion of productivity. It put a huge strain on my relationship and my well-being and my job. The costs are astronomical, particularly for families of multiples. If you identify with that, do give me a ring, 0345 6060 973. Now, a little segue, actually it's not a segue, a little scoot. Do you see what I've done there? To a different story briefly. MPs seeking a headphone ban for scooter riders following a series of fatal accidents. There's apparently been a surge in accidents involving headphones and scooters. Despite headphone users being unable to hear other vehicles properly, the dangerous practice is not against the law. Let's get the latest on this from Tessa Laws, lawyer specialising in e-scooters. Tessa, I can't believe this. Why wouldn't you think that the law would protect people from people on scooters with headphones on that can't hear?
In 2 miles, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
Regulation around e-scooters, and there should be more regulation around e-scooters, Camilla. What's the deal on cyclists? Are they banned from wearing headphones currently?
I don't know, but I wouldn't imagine that they are if e-scooter riders aren't.
Yes. I know you can't wear headphones when you're driving a car.
No, we can't.
What's the trouble here then? That these devices have been introduced with no legislation.
Sorry.
Oh, no.
Camilla, you can put an AirPod in your ear.
Okay.
What's the difference?
But from a legal perspective, Tessa, is this just the technology is basically we put the cart before the horse raced ahead, and there's no legislation to deal with the safety around any of it.
You're right, absolutely. There needs to be far more regulation. E-scooters are amazing. They work really well in a situation where they are regulated, where cars respect them, where people respect them, where they're not on the pavement, where the riders know how to ride them, and you know, headphones or no headphones, there needs to be respect for the rider of the e-scooter, for the pedestrian, and cars mainly are the most dangerous thing, so they need to have respect for the e-scooter riders. But yeah, we need regulation. They need to be regulated.
Is the government doing enough on this finally, Tessa?
Absolutely not. The government are doing nothing about it at the moment.
Useful. All right, thank you very much. That's Tessa Law. She's a lawyer specialising in e-scooters. We'll have to do an hour on them. I know Piercy did earlier. I mean, I don't quite get it. I don't think I'd let my children ride one, and I certainly wouldn't want to ride one. Maybe I'm not down enough with the kids, but I just think I'd end up falling off and doing myself or somebody else some serious damage. Now let's get back to childcare now, and I'm talking about the rising cost of childcare, and also whether it's putting you as a parent or someone you know off returning to work because the figures just don't add up. It's not worth working because everything that you earn you're having to shell out in childcare costs. Pat's in Oxted. Pat, what do you think?
In a quarter of a mile, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
How would we do that, Pat? But how would you even pay them? I've got 3. But I wouldn't be...
Exit at junction 6.
I don't, well, no. I got my husband and me are childcare, which we managed.
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the 3rd exit onto Tons Lane, A355.
It would need an economist to sort that out. But my idea is that if you've got children, it's so sad that you can't look after them yourself because you need the money. Well, if we paid them enough money to look after them themselves, they could then join in with all the children's activities, like going swimming with them and going down to the nursery with them and doing all this sort of thing. A lot of women have to go to work because they need the money.
But they don't just have to, Pat.
They could make a vacation out of bringing up children like anything else.
But they don't just have to go to work, Pat. They want to work.
Yes, but the trouble is that if you take on the responsibility...
Exit the roundabout onto Tons Lane.
You suddenly can't decide halfway through, oh, I wish I don't want to be a teacher anymore, I'm going to be a hairdresser, or I'm going to be an accountant.
Well, you could if you wanted. You could change career, Pat.
On the responsibility, you have to accept it. And we should help people who get into trouble, who can't, who, through no fault of their own...
In a quarter of a mile, slight left towards Sippenham Lane.
You're making it...
I shouldn't sort of suddenly say, well, I've got to go to work so that the man next door, through taxation, has to pay for my children to be looked after.
But hang on a minute, Pat. You seem to be making childcare just the preserve of the mother rather than the father.
Well, you can make it the father. You choose between you whether you want to make it the mother or the father. That's a family decision, isn't it? It's just that in most human species, it's the mother that looks after the children, and the father goes out and earns the pennies.
All right.
We don't live...
Slight left towards Sippenham Lane.
No, I'm only ending it there, Pat, to cram more people in. Malcolm's in Manchester. Malcolm, what do you think?
Yeah, how dreadful that we would go back to the 1950s. Those dreadful years...
Continue for 1.5 miles.
And didn't have the benefit of government money or my money and taxes and vouchers and brought up their children, and the dreadful thing, the indignity of being at home and looking after your children and bringing them up. How dreadful those years in the 1950s. It was awful. I can understand why no one wants to go revisit the 1950s. But I would like to say that here we are in 22. Yes, you've got to choose between career or kids. That's a tough one, a very tough one. And do you love your career or love your kids?
Well, maybe you can love both, Malcolm.
Well, I don't agree that loving your children is waking them up in the morning, getting them dressed, taking them to nursery, picking them up from nursery at 6:30,
we send our
taking
children
them
to
home,
school.
undressing them, putting them to bed. that's not loving.
Hang on a minute,
sorry.
Malcolm, sorry.
You know,
We
that's
send
not
children to school, right, to be educated all day. And
Yes,
equally,
exactly.
I mean, I love my career. I work a
Yes, you
6-day
do.
week. Does
Yeah.
that mean I don't
Well,
love my
good.
children?
Well, I'm sorry, but that is a decision you've made,
Does
isn't
it mean that I don't?
I would prefer, I think, you know, you're talking about the 1950s, those dreadful years when mothers actually witnessed their child's first steps, heard their first words.
Yeah, I still witness
were there
that.
for
I
them
just
when
had
they
a job
fell
as
over
well. I mean,
and helped them through their life
Malcolm.
and gave them a good start to life. Those dreadful years of the 1950s, how awful. And now I have to pay out of my taxes for children to be brought up and to be looked after at a nursery. And I'm not, I don't think, you know, taking them to, just waking them up, dressing them, taking them to nursery,
Malcolm.
but then coming home, undressing them, putting them to bed, is not spending time with your children and looking after your children and caring about
Yeah,
your
but no,
children
but
and
Malcolm,
loving
do
your
you not
children.
understand? Do you not understand that people can have children and love them and look after them and go out to work? Presumably you understand that because you understand that men can love their children and have jobs.
The nursery bringing up the children as it is today and witnessing their first steps.
Hang on, no, Malcolm. I can be a journalist and I can witness my children's first steps. You do understand that, yeah? Malcolm, I'm telling you, I've held down a really high-profile career for the last 20 years, and I don't think I've missed a key moment in my children's lives.
Well, you're very lucky then.
No, but I'm the norm because we're not robots. No.
Obviously, you're financially secure to be able to do
It's
that.
nothing to do with financial security, Malcolm. It's to do with making the time and trying to be the best you can be at both of what you're doing. But funny enough, yeah, we don't want to go back to the 1950s when women were subjugated. They weren't able to have careers. Intelligent women were put off even going to university because somehow they were the default parent. I mean, are there men out there that disagree with Malcolm? Can you give me a ring maybe so we can try and perhaps leave the time warp and get back to something a little bit more resembling modern living? And actually, let's be realists here, because people do have to have a dual income. That applies to people from the working classes all the way to people of more means, because they've got to fund their means. You know, you could then start saying, oh well, if you look, why does Victoria Beckham work? Doesn't she love her children? She's got enough money. Oh my goodness. Joy's in Stretton. Joy, bring me joy.
Hello, good afternoon. Hello, Malcolm. I couldn't agree with